Kevin Cameron, welcome to the Salem Business Journal podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's good to be here with you.
Yeah. So we got a lot to cover. Man, this is a world that I don't know too well, politics. I'm interested in politics, but I don't know local politics. So we're going to go on to a deep dive that I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of clarity and learn who you are and what you've done in this community. And it looks like a whole lot for a long time.
Yeah, well, I didn't know much about politics either. In fact, 20 years, it's been over 20 years now. I've been an elected official, so I guess you can call me a politician. But background is I went to Oregon State, graduated in class of 80, and worked for Vips Industries here in town.
Yeah.
They own hotels and
Yep.
restaurants, and in those days we did La Casa Reals. And back in I guess it was 94 or whatever, they sold Chevys and I started my own business, Cafe Today restaurants.
Okay. Yeah.
Some people know the Sassy Onion here in town. Originally, that was a Cafe Today. We opened that one in 1997. So being in the restaurant business, I started and I was involved with the Restaurant Association, started going into the building to testify on pieces of legislation that were impacting small businesses throughout the state. Opened a restaurant in the basement of the Capitol it was 97 and started meeting a lot of people that were, coming into that restaurant down in the basement, and took an assessment at my church at that time. And this lady, Denise Bowles, comes up to me and says, "Hey, I read my mission statement." And she said, "Hey, you need to run for office someday."
Wow.
And these people in the basement were saying, "You need to do this someday." And at that time, my representative got in a little bit of personal trouble. He resigned, and I went through the appointment process in 2005 and was appointed February of 2005 to the Oregon State Legislature.
Wow.
I served there 9.5 years, came here in June of 2014, and I've been here obviously a long time. It seems like a long time, 10.5 years, but it goes by really fast.
Yeah.
So county commissioner is more like running a business.
Yeah.
I feel like my talents and skills of being in a business. We have 1,700 employees. We have a very substantial budget, and you've got your boots on the ground here. You're getting things done.
Would you say it's less political on a daily than the House of Representatives?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was there in for 9.5 years, and I was there during the session of 2011. And we were tied 30-30 for the first time in the history
I read that.
of the
Yeah.
House. And that was a really fun time. We got a lot done down the middle. People had to come together. And I think if we could, and I've heard lobbyists tell me that was probably their favorite session ever.
Oh, I bet.
And if you think about it, if you have people on this side and this side, and there was people in our caucus, their caucus, that were upset because they couldn't get their policies done.
Sure.
Well, we got stuff done in the middle.
No one could strong arm each other.
Right.
Wow.
We had to come together, and it was a historical moment that I will remember forever. And it helped me understand how important it is to work with other people. And, I've carried that with me. I still have relationships over there today.
Oh, I bet.
Served with the governor. She was in the House at the time.
And that just goes with, every equal playing field.
Yeah.
A lot can happen on
Sure.
that, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. Well, I mean, so county commissioner, you said it's ran more like a business. What are take me a little bit through what you mean by that. So obviously you have so many different areas and sections that you serve.
Yeah.
What would be some places that you would go in to say that?
Yeah. For almost a year, I knew I was going to do this. I was going to run for this job. And I came over and started going to their meetings, and I went, whoa, they deal with all this different stuff. And then, being here for, I'll tease Commissioner Bethel, or actually not tease, but I'll say it to Commissioner Bethel, Commissioner Willis, that, and every so often something comes up that we have to deal with that we're going, really, the county does that, right? You think about it. We could talk a little bit about that right now. I mean, we probably talk more about your garbage can that's out at the, I took mine out this morning because I won't be there tonight.
Yeah.
That gets picked up and what happens to it. We spend a huge amount of time on that. And we can go into detail about what's happening here in Marion County as a result of, the last 38 years, we had a waste to energy facility that generated electricity with people's garbage.
Wow.
And that facility has been shut down since the end of the year,
Hmm.
and will continue to be shut down in the future unless somebody makes some $50 million or more investment in new technology, etc.
Yeah.
But we talk about garbage. We talk about the health department. We talk about the sheriffs, the jail, roads, bridges,
So,
planning.
does that get hard to manage, or do you have people kind of heading each section, each sector?
Yeah. So what I would say about being a commissioner is the same way in running my business. You have to have good people better than you,
Yeah.
or that are more knowledgeable than
Yeah.
you. And your job is to listen, to ask the right questions, and then to make a decision with the best information that you have. You're not an expert. And if you think you are, you'll be humbled pretty quick by something. And so having 15 department heads, we have a CAO, we have a lot of people that are specialized in those areas
Yeah.
that have to bring information forward, present that information, and then have us give it the okay to move forward.
Interesting.
It really is a board position.
Yeah.
It's not a management position,
Yeah.
and yet we are the road authority. We are the health authority, so we can make those decisions to be implemented by others within the county.
How do you decide where to force your focus? How do you decide what are the hottest topics and what needs the most attention?
Yeah, that's been it's come and gone over the years I've been here. When I first got here, it was Commissioner Brentano, Commissioner Carlson, and I'll never forget the first day I was here. We were deciding who was going to work on what areas.
Sure.
And I remember Commissioner Carlson looking at me and said, "We just decided that in 30 minutes. In the past, it would have taken us forever." And I took on, at that time, I took on economic development and public safety, helped with public safety. And now currently, we had two new board members, Commissioner Willis came in to replace Commissioner Carlson, and then Commissioner Bethel came in to replace Commissioner Brentano. You have this new experience, and you have to figure out how you're going to work best together. You can't be an expert in all the areas.
No.
And so I still love the business side of economic development. And so I participate in Travel Salem Board. And then my other big focus is timber, natural resources.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I spend, parks, because we have a lot of work going on in parks recovery. And then the other one I spend a lot of time on is solid waste, environmental services. But all of us have to be brought up to knowledge on what's going on in those areas.
Certainly.
Commissioner Bethel spends a lot of time in health, in the health department. And then we'll be in meetings together and I'll understand it, but I don't have the depth of knowledge. So I mentioned some of the areas that I'm involved with, but one of them I'll talk is really important to the canyon is a wildfire recovery. And as a survivor of, I actually left that night early in the morning, September 8th. It was a Tuesday morning, or September 7th, Monday night, and drove through the fire. My house was spared. I had some severe smoke damage, but since then I've joined the Planning Commission at Detroit.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do that, but I thought I wanted to give back a little bit of, I wondered, why did my house stand? But we have done things as a board. We actually worked in the legislature on two bills. One of those was to allow people, right after the fire, we realized they were going to get their property tax statements.
Yeah.
And they're going to get this property tax statement. They're going to go, what am I paying property taxes on? My house burned down. So we worked with the legislature to get a bill that allowed us to, if counties chose, there were wildfire impact, to refund 10 out of the 12 months of your property taxes that year after the fire. We did that. So we refunded people's property taxes. Another bill that we got passed that really made a big difference to a lot of people that were residents before the fire that lost their homes and rebuilt. If you think about it, their property taxes, let's just say on a 1,500 square foot house, might have been $1,500 a year up there, but they rebuilt it at today's cost, and it resets, and it may be $4,500 a year.
Right.
This bill allows us to have them apply for a homestead act that rolls their property taxes back to the amount it was before the fire, plus the 3% every year.
Oh, wonderful.
So That was another bill that we worked hard on in Marion County, and other
Mm.
counties. I don't know that they've taken advantage of it.
Yeah, because typically it goes off the millage rate.
Yeah,
Right. That's
yeah,
how it's calculated.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the other, I could talk about. In fact, Tony in our office has done this whole recap of all the things we've done for wildfire recovery. But right now, currently, right after the fire, we worked with the legislature and got $50 million in ARPA money to do a sewer system that we had already been working on before the fire. So currently that sewer system is in Mill City and will be run up to Gates.
Hmm.
And the challenge is, and I don't want to go into too much weeds here, but
Sure.
there's a 3-basin rule that it does not allow direct discharge. It's a DEQ rule. You cannot direct discharge into the Santiam, the Clackamas, or the McKenzie River. That's
Right.
why it's a 3-basin, because the drinking water that those people that we drink right here in Salem, by the way. This book, Sweet Mountain Water,
Yeah.
I gave it to the committee members in the House 2 weeks ago, or in the Senate when I testified on this bill. It's the history of Salem's water supply up to 2003,
Wow.
back to the 1800s. Great book. If anybody ever wants to read it, you can get it on Amazon, and it's
love that.
written and published here locally.
I love that.
It's the history of Salem's water. So right now, because of the 3-basin rule and a federal ruling in the Supreme Court on, it's called the Maui decision, it does not allow ground infiltration that will eventually hit to a waters of the
Sure.
the country,
Mhm.
which it will. You have to have a national in-water permit. Well, the 3-basin rule doesn't allow DEQ to issue a national in-water permit. So we're at this,
Butting of heads.
right? So we got a bill. It just passed the Senate floor when I came here that allows us to start construction. We've petitioned DEQ for a rule change. That is moving forward, but it'll take, we did that back in August. It'll take almost a year to get that rule change done.
Interesting.
And then hopefully we'll have the permits to flush water through the system about a year from now. And we have to have all the money spent on this expensive system by December 31st, 2026 because of the ARPA funding. Otherwise,
What is ARPA funding?
It was the
Explain.
American Rescue Plan
Got
that was passed by Congress during COVID
Okay.
to get money out. And it went directly to counties, and it was based on, I believe, population.
Got it.
But the state also got a big chunk, and the state
So it gets
sent us some of
distributed.
that money for this project. It's really important for housing, the governor's housing initiative. We've got property up there to build houses on, but the septic systems are just old and
Yeah.
gone. But if you go back up there now, you'll see a lot of homes. Other things we did, like we suspended building permits. If you rebuilt your house, you didn't have to pay for a building permit.
Which it can get costly.
Yeah. So lots of things that we did for wildfire recovery.
That's
And
wonderful.
and then if you look at the towns of Detroit, especially the town of Detroit, they're under this pressure on the lake because they're really based on recreational stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then it's just another one of those nails in the coffin. They get a new biop from NOAA in December. Army Corps gets this biop, and it basically says, hey, you're going to do this drawdown. You're going to draw down Detroit. And I think a lot of people know about what happened in Sweet Home. They did the drawdowns there at Green Peter.
Sure.
And they destroyed the kokanee fishing, and they ruined water systems. So now Detroit's facing that. We just got news this week. It won't happen this fall, but it really is a very difficult time in the canyon to live there, to make a living there, and to keep things going.
Talk about how important it is for Salem and these bigger cities to have those types of communities like Detroit. I feel like that growing up is like, it's like an oasis. It's like a breath of fresh
Yeah.
air. Your buddies have a house there. Your family, you go there for a day for boating. I mean, it's a community place.
Oh, it's one of
Yeah.
those places, I live most of my time up there, but
Yeah.
I also have a place here in Salem. But it's one of those places, where do you get to drive? You put a permit on your golf cart and you can drive a golf cart around town, right?
Yeah.
The only place I could ever do that before was Belize. When I go down there, that was my rental car. So it's a place where you can go out and walk, and you can hike up in the hills, and you can do all those things. It's a wintertime oasis. People that have homes up there go up and snowmobile at McCoy, or they go over to Hoodoo and they snowmobile or they ski. So it's kind of a year-round place, but in the summertime it balloons, and it's all about the recreation. Here's the challenge for people. I'm going to go back to the Sweet Mountain water. If that drawdown happens, the city of Salem, and they refer to it in here, has a sand filtered system, and most people don't know where their water's coming from when they drink it here, but it's coming out in Staten at Guerin Island, and it's sand filters, and then it's piped all the way into Salem into different reservoirs. So if those sand filters get silt in them, it will stop the water system. So it's a unique system in the fact that if you read about it, the water is so pristine that's coming out of the Jefferson watershed that you almost don't need to treat it. They do, but you can
less
almost
is more almost
drink it. Yeah. So that's the issue with the 3-basin rule, keeping that water clean and pristine for the people that drink it here. But this drawdown, if you remember what happened, I think it was back in 2000. Was it 2007? We had the 15 where they almost didn't have enough water in the river to pull water out. That's going to be a challenge with a drawdown. They also had the bacteria issue, algae bacteria issue, when everybody stole all the
blue
not
algae
stole
or
but bought every bottle of water in town. So that lake and that reservoir up there is really critical to our livelihoods on this end as well. And we all want to see salmon. I love eating salmon. I love fishing for salmon. We all want to see salmon survive and come back. But we got to be really careful at the expense of the human life and the human livability. That this is.
Yeah, we almost sometimes overprotect, right? Or over.
Water is the lifeblood of not only fish, plants, us, animals. So we all got to have water.
Yeah. Okay. I know that we wanted to touch on this incinerator, and there's fumes. Touch a little bit about on that and waste and how that's affected Salem.
Well, you mentioned fumes out of the incinerator. I mean, on a cold day, you could see white steam coming out, and obviously that facility was built in the 80s. It has generated electricity. It generates enough electricity to power a city about the size of Woodburn.
Wow.
So we were taking your garbage and turning it into electricity. And what was left, and not only, if you think about this, when you take your garbage today straight to a landfill, if there's a tin can in it, it's going into the landfill. That, when you incinerated it at such a high temperature, it was taking all that metal, and they were actually recovering all the metal out of the ferrous and non-ferrous metals. So what was left is, if you put a ton of garbage in there, which is 2,000 pounds, 10% was left in ash. So you went from 2,000 pounds down to 200, and all that was left was the ash. And the ash was being used for daily cover down at Coffin Butte, because in a landfill they have to cover the waste every day with dirt and pad it. And in this case, they didn't have to use dirt; they could use the ash for cover. So there was a lot of good things about that. There's a lot of criticism that it was polluting, and the science is science, and some people will quote certain things and other people will quote other things. But I know in our surveys of county residents, it was upwards of 75% that would prefer their waste to go into electricity in that facility versus into a landfill. It's done. It's closed. There was Senate Bill 488 that was passed over in the Senate and the House, and the governor signed it. But when you read the governor's letter, she wasn't quite sure that this was the right thing to do. And I think she's right. But as far as that goes, right now we got to move forward and see what we're going to do to move our waste someplace else.
So we're in the twilight zone. We're a little bit in the air on where we're going to be going.
Since that thing was built, Marion County has grown so much that we were already sending about 2/3 of our waste down to Coffin Butte.
Okay.
It can only take in about 1/3 of our waste. And again, getting into weeds, that thing would take on about 125,000 tons a year, and we were producing 350,000 tons per year
Of waste.
of waste. Right.
Wow.
I'm a master recycler. My wife gives me a bad time about the little teeny trash can that we have,
Yeah.
and it hardly ever overflows, right? Because you just, be thinking about what you're buying, buy bulk spices, that type of thing. So we have to reduce first. We have to reuse, but we're always going to have waste. You hear people say, let's do zero waste, zero waste management or zero waste. Well, you're not going to get ever to zero.
No.
It's a concept of like reaching perfection. You're never going to get to perfection.
Especially with the abundance that we have now.
Yeah.
And we have so much of everything.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the recovery, though, you've got the top 3 recoveries in the state. Lane County is number 1, Marion County is number 2, and then Metro is number 3. All of those have a form of what you would call flow control. They all direct where their waste is going to go. Lane County has their own solid waste management facilities and MRFs. We directed our waste and recovered. And there's a movement, and I've served on this solid materials waste management regional program the last year. There's a movement towards regionalization of trying to figure out how we can work together to get more out of the system.
Yeah.
Starting in July 1 of this year, DEQ is going to start this. It's the RMA. It's the Recycling Modernization Act.
Mm-hmm.
So the citizens of Marion County and others throughout the state are going to be impacted by that. Asked to do more standard, some good things, more standard recycling, because, what goes in your blue bin, those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening to our waste now? The 125,000 tons that were going there are getting packed on trucks and are going out to a landfill out by the Dalles. But now we got all those trucks on the highway up through congested, right? Portland, all the emissions on those trucks. So the people that, were against that because of the emissions, now we got trucks that have emissions. So one of the things we're looking at is how do we regionalize this and put it on rail, right?
Interesting.
So, and put it on rail to go out there.
It's
and
like
there's other
going
forms.
Back in time.
Yeah. Well, that's what everybody else has been doing. And you're right. We're going back in time instead of moving forward. And you'll hear Commissioner Bethel say, well, I want to be a leader. I want to be a leader. So do I. But it takes money.
Yeah.
And one of the people that are trying to do different things here in our community against what we have been doing think they can do better. I don't know how they're going to pay for it. They talk about these other systems that they want to bring in, but you got to pay for it. And so I think that's a challenge.
That's really good. I mean, I've never heard so intricately the background and the backstory of what happens with our waste. So thank you for shedding light on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Kevin, what have you seen? What is one of your more proud moments that you've seen materialize or kind of come a manifestation that you had that actually came forth and that you've seen be put to work and actually succeed?
Yeah. In the last year, if I think about 12 months back today, well, number one, my wife moved up here from California and she's been up here for a year and loves Oregon now.
Congratulations.
So yeah, that was an accomplishment. I'm pretty proud of that. And and the other, I mean, business wise, I think of the sewer system and the challenges that we've had trying to move this thing forward, and just seeing a bill passed on the Senate floor that I worked on relationships. We have a lobbyist that's helped us as well.
Yeah.
Ryan Tribbett has done a great job helping us with that. Senator Gerard has been working his butt off to try to help us get that done. Those little things that, matter to the whole population up the canyon, Mill City and Gates will have a sewer system because we can get those types of things done.
Yeah.
Those are little things that I really celebrate because, it's not the easiest thing in the world to go over to that building and have the connections and have relationships, and to be able to, have the governor's cell number or her chief of staff and talk, hey, this is an emergency order type deal. We need this as soon as it gets to your desk.
Yeah.
So I think, but it's not done. I think I celebrate that, but it's not done. So when
Yeah.
that first toilet flushes in Mill City or Gates hooked up to that system,
Then
cork the champagne bottle.
yeah.
But little teeny things along the way. Those are the things as a commissioner that you really, you go home and say, hey, I worked my butt off today, but I got something done.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
those things echo. I mean, it has like there's repercussions of good and bad, and
Yeah.
the repercussions of your actions on a daily, and even in the most meticulous things, relationships, a phone call, you pressing someone one way or another to make something happen, and then them going. I mean, it's a domino effect. I'm sure.
Yeah. Seeing our parks last summer, our parks get open for day use up the Little North Fork.
Wonderful.
I
went up there.
It's still not beautiful like it was. It's
No.
beautiful in a different way.
Sure.
But people can at least go in up there for day use and enjoy that in the summertime.
What are scientists saying? How long that's going to take for it to?
Oh
back?
well,
80
you think
years or
about
something?
the trees that blew over. I mean, those trees were 100 years old, right?
Yeah.
Hundreds of years old in some cases. So it's going to be a different landscape for
Our
I'll be
lifetime.
gone.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe my grandsons will see some stuff. And it's interesting because there's a gentleman in Detroit that I coached Little League with years ago.
Yeah.
Ross Peel. He has a house up on the hill, and he remembers as a kid, he used to be able to see the lake. And then the trees grew and he couldn't see the lake. And now after the fire, he's got a lake view again.
Whoa.
So, I mean, that's the kind of,
like 80 years,
changes that
years,
have occurred. Yeah. Over a period of time. Wow. Yeah. And, you drive up the canyon and you see things that you didn't see before after the fire happened. Yeah. I'm pretty excited about things that we've gotten done. And there's a lot of challenges we have.
100%.
I think if you want one other one, the House Bill 4002 that got passed last session that reinstated some sort of criminal conviction for certain drugs that allowed us not to put people in jail, but allowed us to hold people accountable and get them into treatment and start to make a difference in people's lives. Every time you go to one of these graduations, these SOAR graduations, and you see 20 people that have come out of prison and gone through a college program and are getting, congratulated, and they're reuniting with their families and with their kids. I mean, those are things that, it's hard. It's hard out there when you drive down the street and you see so much. It's hard to see things that are making a difference in people's lives. And that's how we impact change, is me first, right? And another person, one person at a time.
Wow. So I love that. I didn't know that. So that's beautiful. So because we opened drugs up across the board. And we were nothing unlawful, basically illegal. Yeah,
we were the United States experiment, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, was it Amsterdam or someplace?
That was
like
huge headlines.
Right.
All drugs are legal in Oregon.
And I'll tell you, people did come here.
I know.
Because they knew they could. Yeah.
Right. It's like Amsterdam. When weed wasn't legal in the world, everyone would go to Amsterdam to go to their little coffee shops and smoke weed, right? Or whatever, I don't even know. But so we reeled back the stipulations that we had, and that were basically a free for all of no drugs are illegal.
Yeah.
So just a handful of them. And then now we're actually putting people through due process once we catch them in their harder drugs. And
it's more about trying to get people into, I mean, they're not arresting people and putting them in jail for small amounts.
Sure.
But they have the ability.
Yeah.
And, our LEAD program, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion program, has been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the 4002 model, they're calling it, what's it being called now? Diversion, I think it's called.
Okay.
Deflection.
Wow.
Whatever. So it's been our LEAD program has been deflection for a long time, where we would, these people would get met on the street and they may have no person-to-person crimes, but they've had drug convictions or something.
Yeah.
And our lead people would meet them, and these are people that are in lead that have been in their position before. They are
Okay. They can speak to them.
recovery. Yeah,
Sure.
they've gone through recovery, and they would say, "Hey, look, if you want, I'll get you the resources. If you really want help."
Wow.
So that's what you couldn't even have a law enforcement officer approach somebody because the law didn't allow them to. Now you can approach somebody, and you can say, now they're not going to necessarily make an arrest, but they're going to say, "Hey, we can get some help here."
Yeah. Beautiful.
So yeah, that's a step back in the right direction, or a step forward in the right direction.
Well,
I guess.
congratulations to you and everyone that put action on that.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Commissioner Bethel worked really hard on that bill, and Association of Oregon Counties was involved with it. So still got some changes that
yeah.
we'd like to make.
Oh yeah. All right. In closing, is there any other places and areas that you'd like that you're excited to see, to focus on more, and to bring more awareness and to bring more change to? Or
Well, one of the other areas is our Public Works Department. I serve on the MWAC here and SCATS, which are the two of the organizations that elected officials serve on for policy and transportation. And as I drive our roads, and most people don't understand whether they're on a county road or they're on a city road or on a state road.
Mm-hmm.
If you go over on Lancaster, if you're at Target over on Center and Lancaster, you're in the county. If you go across to the mall, you're in the city.
Right.
Most people don't know that. But in roads, they just want a road to drive on. I kind of probably recognize them because of my position. But as I drive around, I think our roads are in pretty good shape for the amount of money that we get to spend on them. Our Public Works Department does a really good job of trying to do the right maintenance at the right time with the resources they have.
Sure.
But I drove down Commercial Street yesterday and from 12th, and I swear Commercial Street was so rutted and so bad. I was getting ready to go, what are we doing to fix some of these streets that are inside cities? Cities has the same challenges with resources that we do.
Yeah.
But some of those main fares, and whether that's a state highway or a city highway, sometimes you don't know. So I think paying attention to our roads, our bridges,
infrastructure,
infrastructure is critically important, and we do a fairly good job in Marion County with that.
Like you're talking about echoes too, because that also echoes the local economy, because you just are keeping those roads at work, and public dollars are getting positioned in the correct place, and you could probably dive into the whole economic value of doing that as well.
The economic thing I dive into is when I hit a pothole, and how much is that going to cost me because I gotta get my car fixed, right? I mean, and that's causing damage to people's property by not maintaining
significantly. And I've spent some time elsewhere in other countries and whatnot, and there are some sore thumbs of places where the roads are just brutal. I mean, brutal. So we are lucky to have pretty solid roads. But once you start to, it happens fast. Roads, we create ruts over time.
ODOT's got challenges. We hear about it over in the, I drive Highway 22 a lot, and you get right up in front of the state park up there, and that road's just falling apart.
As we get more and more and more tourists, those roads need more and more attention, and it feels like every single year they spend months on those roads during the summer and the hot time of the year.
They have to. That's when they got to go to work.
So it's tough. I couldn't, and those are such tight roads, and in between all the mountains, everyone's driven that road, but what is the solution to do it perfectly?
They got to resurface it. I guess. I don't know. I'm not like I said, I'm not the expert. Somebody else is the expert. Can analyze what's wrong with it. I'm the expert on how to allocate the dollars. Right. That's the challenge that's what we have to do with the budget. That's a big thing. Yeah.
Sure. Kevin, it's April is Child Abuse Awareness Month. Talk about some of your service in that, and how your people here have effect in that as well.
Yeah, we did our annual. We do it every year. A board proclamation raising awareness that child abuse prevention. People probably seen the ribbons on the tree. Yeah. And Friday we had started at the state fairgrounds a parade with many of the nonprofits here in town. And and end up at Salem Police Department. And a gentleman from our health department was one of the speakers, and he did a really good job of talking about what our health department does and how it all relates back to that. I mean, we have a women, our WIC program, Women with Children, that helps supply them, helps train them. We have children's mental health. And it's been just a year where if you call on this day, you will get same day. We have enough people, we get same day service.
Wow.
Where you can get in to see somebody.
Wow.
It's reduced their no-show to 5%. So in other words, if somebody needs to get in, 10 people call, or 100 people have called and they said they need to get in. A lot of times before they would say, well, we'll have an appointment in 4 days or next week or whatever. And so the no-show would be, we don't need it now. But so we've reduced that to 5%. So you think about all the services that we do in our health department, they all relate back to helping support families and children from prevention. So we do that every year, and it's an ongoing issue. I know in Marion County, I think the statistics that they cited the other day, I don't have them, somewhere around 900 confirmed child abuse cases in Marion County last year. So we'd love to see everybody work themselves out of the job for that. But
you want to have an end, means to an end.
Yeah,
it's tough.
And people need help, and
I think it's critical that people remember that child abuse is more than just being like physical. It is a lot. There's also malnourishment, and there's there's so many different forms of child abuse that, especially in this ever-changing world, that we need to be cognizant of and aware of.
Yeah, and what I would ask people to remember is that don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I was watching, I don't know if you've ever watched it, but Full Swing. It's the Netflix golf thing.
Yeah, I got golf socks on right now.
Well, I'm trying to think of the golfers, the guy that had the brain surgery.
Oh.
Anyways, he wrote these letters to his kids before he was going in for the surgery. And the one thing he told his son was, don't ever be afraid to ask for help. And I took that away from watching that. And, he's gone through a lot, but he's had to ask for help. And probably before, he was this athlete and he didn't, he was strong and all that. But we need to ask for help. We need to, whether it's your church or our health department or some social organization that can give you parenting classes or whatever you need, because it's really the stress that we have in our lives. If you can have somebody help you see through that stress or get you through that stress, you'll see how important it is to love on your kids and to do. And we all make mistakes, and it's okay to ask for forgiveness,
100%.
But to move forward in a better way. So that's what I would say.
Well, thank you for that, Kevin. That means a lot, and I appreciate you diving deep on that. And this is the perfect transition of asking for help. How can just a normal, ordinary guy, man or woman in this community, such as me or Jesse or Jonathan or someone that's not even affiliated with politics whatsoever, or any type of service that you're in, how could we help? How could we get involved? Where could you see the normal person jumping in, and what areas could they benefit?
Well,
you guys and themselves.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is you can always email us at BOC. It's a general mailbox. You can email me at mine. It was K Cameron.
Sure.
But you could always email the Board of Commissioners, and we'll get back to you on any question you may have.
Yeah.
But we have a volunteer coordinator, Sherry Littner.
Okay.
We have many boards, advisory boards, and commissions that I don't know how many we have, a lot.
Wow.
And she tracks all of those hours.
Yeah.
For example, I go to the SWAMAC, which is a Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
And I'm the liaison to that. I go to the Parks Commission. I'm the liaison to that commission.
Wow.
We have the Public Safety Coordinating Council. We have alcohol prevention.
And these all have an effect. You see them work and change things.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, I'm sure. And you have seen probably in your time.
Some are advisory types. Some are statutory that we're required to have, that actually have to approve certain things that
Wow.
we do. So, there's all kinds of them, but Sherry has a full list of them.
Cool.
She could send it out to somebody, and she can share where there's openings. But the volunteer hours that are spent in Marion County are a huge asset.
Yeah.
Huge asset. And we do volunteer recognition awards at the fair every year. We have a day
cool.
where we share that, and there's some special awards that we give out to people who have gone over and a bit beyond. So
we'll share
important.
some of those hyperlinks of how they can get involved in the boards that they can serve on, for sure, on the website under the podcast that we're about to put up of us. But yeah, that's good to know. It's good to know that we can do our own research and get involved and join committees and boards and make a difference and have influence in places that are needed desperately.
And I know your audience is, focused towards businesses.
Sure.
And there's a lot of people that are not necessarily in their own business or involved in a business. But I want to say this to your audience, that businesses, it's really important that businesses show up and that they participate and they give to advice, their technical background. And we have an opportunity every board session at 9 a.m. on Wednesdays. Check the calendar, because maybe 5 times a year we don't,
Sure.
around the holidays or because we're out of town.
Yeah.
But there's an opportunity for public comment at every board session. And it's usually just a time where people can come and talk to us, and we don't necessarily talk back. So, it'd be kind of like going home and having somebody to talk to that never says anything back to you. Sometimes we'll respond.
Yeah.
But it's an opportunity to give public input. That's another opportunity that we have every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. But I do want to stress to the businesses that are out there that may be listening to this, that thank you for what you do. We had some research done and then made a presentation. That's a good thing for all your clients that read the Salem Business Journal or listen to your podcast. It's a kind of a cartoon video. John's sitting over here. He helped put it all together.
Heck yeah. That
shows what percentage of property taxes that businesses pay to go and support all the services that we need.
Wow.
They supplement the individual property taxes on homeowners because of all the property taxes they pay on their buildings as well as their equipment, etc.
Yeah.
We just do appreciate business, and sometimes we have to raise prices, just like in a business, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the garbage bill or a fee. And I remember in the restaurant business, because that was my livelihood.
Sure. We'll dive more into the story of your life.
Yeah, and
that'll be fun.
Every time I went to go raise the price of a Caesar salad or a taco salad or whatever I was serving, I just cringed. But you know what? I had to do it, or I wouldn't stay in business.
Yeah.
And we're trying to be sensitive about that, but I also understand that we've got to do the right thing to serve everybody.
Well, you got to stay in business to keep giving them the product that they like and they want. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kevin. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much to Collier Law. We appreciate all that you do, and SMI Real Estate for being sponsors of this podcast. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ryan, for sponsoring this.